Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, June the 9th, 2020. Oh man, I can't believe we're already getting through June already. Anyway, tonight we are here to talk the big three horror franchises. We have A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and of course, Halloween. You guys know me, I can't get enough of Halloween. But I wanted to include the other franchises here and just kind of talk about them all together, which we end up doing anyways. But I just kind of wanted to make a formal conversation about all three of the big three horror franchises and just kind of see what our thoughts are. And what I want to do actually is do a little bit of a unique rating. I haven't seen too many people do this. I'm sure they have because, every idea has been done to death these days. But I want to rate these franchises against each other basically like this. I want to have the original movies against each other, rate them best to worst, and then all the number twos, all the number threes, etc., 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 all the way to, we'll only go up to number 7 just because once you get past 7, it's all just shit. But anyway, well, some of them, once you get past the first couple, are shit. But anyway, what I want to do is rank them, starting with the originals. So, which is the best, in my humble opinion, between the original Halloween, the original Friday the 13th, and the original A Nightmare on Elm Street? I'm sure you guys can guess what my number 1 is, but we'll go 3, 2, 1. So, coming in at number 3 would be Friday the 13th. Now, look, these are all classic movies that kickstarted franchises. So for these first couple movies, at least, finishing in third place is not really, it's not a bad thing, but somebody's got to be there, and it's going to be Friday the 13th, mostly just because the other two movies are stronger. And coming in at number 2 is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street, which, big shocker, Halloween is number 1. Halloween is, if it's not my favorite movie of all time, it's number 2, and it's probably interchangeable with Raiders of the Lost Ark, depending on my mood. But it's certainly my favorite horror movie of all time. I think it's probably, in my opinion, the best shot movie of all time. We've talked about this at length before. I don't need to talk about the original Halloween too much today. But just getting back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street, if it wasn't for Halloween, I just feel like this movie would be, even more of a classic than it already is. And don't get me wrong, it's a fucking classic. It's awesome. But if it wasn't for the original Halloween, I don't know. I think we may be talking about this as one of the best horror movies of all time, if not, in the top 3 or whatever. And maybe some people do already. There's definitely arguments to be made there. But yeah, so it beats out Friday the 13th and falls right behind Halloween. So second movies in the franchise. So coming in at number 3, this is tough because I actually do like this movie, but it's kind of the black sheep of the Elm Street franchise, and it's going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. This movie gets so much flack, and some of it is understandably so. I actually just watched 2 days ago the Scream Queens, the documentary on Mark Patton. It's pretty good. Check it out. It's on Shudder, I believe. But yeah, so it's going to come in at number 3 here, and I get it. They bent a lot of the rules as far as the dreams. It's kind of a possession movie. Obviously it's been called. It's common knowledge now that it's the gayest horror movie ever made, and it kind of provides some charm actually. Looking back at it, the coach has balls flying in his face. It's pretty. I don't want to say comical, but it's pretty spot on, so yeah, but as much as I do like this movie, and what I love about this movie is Freddy's fucking scary. I don't want to say he's scarier in A Nightmare 2 than A Nightmare 1, but I think you can definitely make the argument. So yeah, but unfortunately, the other 2 movies in the franchise are a little bit better for me. So coming in second in this, and this is tough too, is going to be Friday the 13th Part 2, which means Halloween Part 2 is the best in my opinion. So out of all the second movies in the franchise, I think Halloween 2 is the best, Friday the 13th 2 is second best, and Nightmare 2 is third best. But nothing against Nightmare 2. I actually am a big fan of that movie. I know a lot of people might not like it. The third movies of the franchise, coming in at number 3, This is actually tough too, and you guys might give me some flack for this, but it's actually going to be Halloween 3. Once again, I am a huge fan of this movie. I love me some Tom Atkins. I love the way, it just feels like Halloween, but I just think the other two movies are better. So the second best third movie of the franchise is going to be, in my opinion, Friday the 13th Part 3. This movie's got a lot of issues too with the 3D effects and shitty acting, even for a Friday the 13th movie. But my favorite Jason is in this movie. Richard Brooker just got some fucking classic kills. And maybe my favorite final chase scene of all time between Jason and Chris. So that's number 2. And coming in at number 1 is going to be Dream Warriors, the best sequel in the Nightmare franchise, in my opinion. It's a fan favorite. You have finally the real balance between funny Freddy and scary Freddy. You got Welcome to Prime Time, bitch. And, they just nail all the lines, okay? They just fucking nail them. So it's the last time that Freddy, is truly scary, and they kind of mix in the humor. So, 4th movies in the franchise. And I'm going to get to you guys questions in a little bit, too. I just want to finish up some of these rankings. 4th movies in the franchise. Number 4 is going to be Nightmare 4. Number 3 is going to be Nightmare 4. And basically, this is when Freddy became MTV Freddy. I know we've all talked about that and heard about it. But really, they took what was successful in Dream Warriors, the humor, the quips, but they cranked it up to 11. And for me, it just doesn't work. It was never, ever about Freddy being funny. It was kind of a dark humor, and they just screwed up and took it too far. The dream sequences are just spectacular. The visuals are great in every Nightmare movie, but especially number 4. Rennie Harlin did a great job, director. I think he directed Die Hard 2 as well. But yeah, Rennie Harlin did a great job. But there's a scene where Freddy is on the beach with sunglasses. Come on, that's not scary. That's, borderline comical. So it falls in last place for the 4th entries of the series. Coming in 2nd place for the 4th entries of the series is going to be Halloween 4. Love me some Halloween 4. The atmosphere in this Halloween, the fall atmosphere is, just undeniably strong. The one thing holding it back for me is the mask. I just think the mask is distracting. Everyone talks about Halloween 5's mask being shitty or being the worst in the franchise, and it is. It's pretty shitty. I hate Halloween 4's even more. It's just too much, and if you don't know the story of that, I know a lot of you do, but they got a bunch of masks in, or they got a couple masks in, and they didn't look right, so they threw paint on it, and it just took away all the definition. And there's even a scene, where he's got pink mask and blonde hair that made it into the movie. How the fuck does that make it into the movie? But anyway, Halloween 4, that aside, does a lot of good things right. But unfortunately, it does not beat Friday the 13th, the final chapter, the quintessential slasher movie, in my opinion. You have probably the best collection of kills in any of these franchises, like top to bottom, just brutal. Jason's just fucking fantastic in here. Ted White just really, really brings a brutality to the character, and it's dark, both visually and tonally. So just, this is probably, in my opinion, if someone said, what's a slasher movie? I'd give them, I tell them to pop in Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. So let's get to the 5th entry. We're going to do the 5th entry, the 6th entry, and the 7th entry. Then we're going to stop before we get into even more dog shit mode. But here's where all 3 franchises kind of take a turn for the worse. You can see them start to slip here in the 5th entries. So coming in 3rd place for the 5th entries is going to be Halloween 5. If you guys have watched any of my videos, or you know me, you know how much I despise Halloween 5. It ruined the fucking Halloween franchise. It just did. It's terrible. I could sit here and list hundreds of things wrong with it. I'm just going to say a couple things. You got the clown cops with the Looney Tune music. You have Jamie being a mute. You have Michael floating down the river. You have Rachel being unceremoniously killed off within the first 15 minutes. God, you have Tina. It's just terrible. I mean, God, don't even get me started. I was in a good mood, and now I'm talking about Halloween 5, and it's kind of ruining my mood. So let's move on. So the second best fifth entry in the franchise is going to be Nightmare 5, The Dream Child. Not a huge fan of this movie. I thought it was clever the way that they had Freddy kind of coming in Alice's dreams through the dreams of her unborn child. Pretty clever idea. Because, at this point it's, getting stale. It's the same shit over and over and over again. But I'm not a fan of this movie. I just don't like the way they did it with Freddy and, his makeup. They had one good kill. The Dan motorcycle kill was pretty sweet. But other than that, this movie it doesn't stand out. So it's the second best fifth entry for me. And the first best fifth entry kind of shows how weak these fifth entries are. It's going to be Friday 5. Obviously, this is known as one of the other ones where Jason is not the killer. You got Roy, the paramedic. A lot of issues with this movie. But it actually does feel like a Friday the 13th film still, which is something you can't say about a lot of the later ones. So yeah, even though there's no Jason, it's kind of a whodunit with another stupid little whodunit twist at the end that you can see a mile away. But I think it's the best of all the fifth entries. Now for the sixth entries, coming in third place is going to be, oh God, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. So as much as I was just ragging on Halloween 5, because Halloween 5 is horrible, I think Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare is the worst horror movie ever made. That's it. Boom. Moving on. I'm not going to ruin everyone's mood talking about it. If you like it, that's fine, but I think it's the worst horror movie ever made. So the sixth entries, number 2 is going to be Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This would go for both entries, whether you're talking about the producer's cut or the theatrical version. Both of them have story issues. Basically, the producer's cut just gives you more of a story that I don't like. Theatrical cut gives you better kills, some interesting choices. But other than that, they're similar movies. It's not like one movie is way different than the other. Producer's cut, has a worse ending, even though both endings suck. But either way, they're both crap. But I do like Michael in this movie. I like the mask. I think it was an improvement from 4 and 5, even though it's not as great as the first two. But other than that, great kills. But yeah, it does not beat the first sixth entry, and that's going to be Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I am actually lukewarm on this movie. Fan favorite, I know. Absolute fan favorite, and it's finally when they realized what they had and they could have fun with the character of Jason Voorhees. So fan favorite, no doubt. It's just I wish it was a little darker. It's kind of, I'm not really a huge fan of some of the meta stuff in it, but either way, it's light years ahead of the other 2 6 entries. And one more basically is for Part 7. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Part 7. Which is the best of the Part 7th entries of the franchise. Man, I can't talk tonight. Sorry, guys. So the worst is actually going to be, you guys are going to kill me here, but the worst of the 7th entries, in my opinion, is, wait for it, Halloween H2O, I think is the worst of the 7th entries. I know, crazy. I am not a fan of H2O. I like the portrayal of Laurie Strode by Jamie Lee. I actually like it better than 2018's version of Jamie Lee Curtis, but it doesn't feel like a Halloween movie at all. At all. It's not in the Midwest. There's, it's just screamified. There's a scene where the little Jumanji kid gets killed, and you see the reflection in Michael's eye. Why are we even seeing Michael's eyes? Don't get me started here. The mask fiasco, and it's just, I'm just not a fan of the movie. But like I said, I do love the portrayal of Laurie Strode as kind of a scared alcoholic. I think it's very, very realistic. And even though Jamie later admits that she kind of cashed the performance in, I think she did a good job. But Halloween H2O is third place. Coming in second place for the seventh entries is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 7, A New Blood. Now, as you know, this movie got butchered by the MPAA. Almost every kill, I think it's almost every kill, is off screen. So a lot of issues there. You got the appearance of Kane Hodder, fan favorite. Everyone loves Kane. Not a huge fan of his performances, mostly because the movies kind of suck. So it's hard to separate that for me. But I think he's all right. And I like Kane. He seems like a stand-up guy. But he does a good job. So yeah. But other than that, besides Tina, there's nothing really special in this movie. So yeah, but I think I'd rather watch that than Halloween H2O, even though I'm a huge Halloween fan. And finally, in first place is going to be Wes Craven's New Nightmare. God, this movie was genius, obviously ahead of its time. Wes was brilliant. Sorry. Unfortunately, obviously he passed away a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago, maybe 2015, 5 years ago already. Holy shit. Maybe it was 2015. Anyway, but yeah, movie way ahead of its time. It just is not a great Freddy movie for me. If you're a huge fan of Freddy, this might not be the movie to see. And obviously it's because it's not Freddy. It's, an ancient demon or something like that has taken the form of Freddy. Ancient evil, I think they say. That's taken the form of Freddy. But yeah, obviously, like I said, this film was just ahead of its time. It's unfortunate that audiences weren't ready for it in 1994, I believe. But obviously, 2 years later, when Wes directed, or that when Scream came out, they were ready for it, and he kind of started to get his due. And obviously, this movie has gotten its due later. So, what do you guys think? What are some of your favorites of the movies we talked about, or favorites of the franchises? Do you have any opinions that might be controversial, like my H2O opinion? Some of your favorite kills in the franchises, favorite moments in the franchises, where are they headed? Lots of stuff we can talk about. So I'm just going to kind of open it up to the chat room, and we're going to answer some questions here. All right. So Master of Fears here, Popeye, The Shape 78. What's up, man? Tommy Quinn, Darth Vader. So The Shape 78 said Friday the 13th, 1980 was good, but didn't have the iconic killer yet, like Michael and Freddy. Yeah, obviously 100% correct there. It's known for the one movie where Jason isn't one movie. The first movie is known for Jason is not the killer, which obviously, like I just talked about Scream, that's kind of a big plot thread at the beginning of the movie. But yeah, Pamela obviously was beheaded at the end of that movie. They didn't know what they had, but yeah, so that's actually a good point on one of the reasons why it could be the worst of the first movies for these franchises. So yeah, I agree with you there, Shit. Master of Fear says, I love Nightmare 2. Me too. I didn't really get a chance to kind of explain too much what I love about this. But like I said, it's dark. It's so much darker than a lot of these movies. I mean, Freddy, he still is cracking quips. There's the line where he says to Jesse, you got the body, I got the brain, and he kind of rips his head open. So he's still quipping a little bit, but it's dark humor. It's not, I'll get you my pretty and your little soul too, like in Freddy's Dead. I mean, god damn. But yeah, Nightmare 2, I think Freddy looks great. Like I said, it's dark. I love the swimming pool massacre scene. I think that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I love Nightmare 2 as well. Tommy Quinn says, any news on the Halloween Kills trailer? Well, no. There's a lot of things floating around out there. A lot of people on Twitter are posting that it's coming out in 2 weeks per this source, but the source is just someone's Twitter account that just happens to have the name Michael Myers. People are also posting tweets from Jason Blum that says, it's coming out on June, whatever, but they're not looking at the post, and they don't realize that the tweets are from 2018. So there's a lot of false information out there. Even if this Michael Myers on Twitter ends up being correct, I'm certainly not going to trust just some random Twitter account. So everyone can believe what they want. As far as I think, I would still be pretty surprised if we get it in the next 2 weeks. There's a lot of things opening up, a lot happening right now in the world, obviously, with theaters now opening. I just saw California now is allowing theaters to reopen at 25% capacity. But yeah, the truth is we don't know what's going to happen. My guess would be in a couple of weeks, we don't get a trailer, but we get a poster maybe, if they decide to go through with it. And then we get a trailer in July. But this is all just speculation. It's just that's just what I think is the most logical way to do it for them. But who knows? They could pop a trailer out tomorrow morning. I could be totally wrong. So I hope I am wrong, by the way. I hope it would be sweet to get a trailer tomorrow morning, wouldn't it? All right. Popeye 129 says, I love Friday the 13th Part 2 is the best in the series. Yeah, it's I love it too. For me, it's in the top 3, and it's kind of interchangeable. I think that Final Chapter is the best, and then 2 and 3 kind of interchange for me. But I love 2, 3, and 4. Those are my favorite in the franchise. So yeah, I love the kind of tone of this movie. You got Sackhead Jason, who's awesome. So yeah, I love Friday the 13th Part 2 as well. Shape 78 says, yeah, I love Friday 3 getting hockey mask too. Yep. Obviously, it's crazy that Jason didn't get his look that we know now. It's just become so iconic. But he didn't get it till more than halfway through the 3rd movie in the franchise. Just crazy. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Popeye JL, wish we could see the cut footage of Friday the 13th Part 2. Someone must have it. Ooh, you have to inform me on that. I haven't heard about any cut footage of Friday the 13th Part 2. Is there some type of producer's cut or Snyder type cut of that? If so, that's news to me. And yeah, I would definitely be down to see that. Let's see here. Jacqueline McEwen. Hey, Jacqueline says, I like Dave McRae's summary of the difference in Halloween 6 cuts. The producer's cut gives more context, but it's still giving context to shit. Oh, I love that. I gotta use that too. I love that, Jacqueline. That's better than I could say it. That's perfect. Both movies, like Dave said there, it's giving more context to shit. That's a perfect analogy. It doesn't change the fact that, Michael is badass and cool as hell in that movie. It doesn't change the fact that the atmosphere is great. It looks like Halloween. But like you said, Dave said, more context doesn't mean more context to a good story. It was more context to shit. So yeah, excuse me. I very much like that analogy. A Shape 78, H2O in California, and the orchestral score just didn't do it for me. Didn't feel like Halloween. Yes, I agree with you, Shape, 100%. It's interesting. A lot of people kind of grew up on H2O because, you had a big lull where slashers were kind of dead, and horror kind of, in general, for the most part, was kind of dead in the early 90s. And then Scream came along and revitalized it. And boom, everyone. You had Scream in 1996. You had Scream 2 in 1997. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, and Halloween H2O comes in 1998. So a lot of people that maybe weren't into horror or are a certain age were introduced to the Halloween franchise in H2O. And it can kind of, have some nostalgia. I totally get nostalgia. There's a lot of movies I like that probably are not very good, but it just reminds me of, being a kid, or reminds me of the first time I fell in love with a certain franchise or a certain character. So I totally understand the nostalgia. of H2O. But like you said, Shape, it just doesn't feel like Halloween. Tommy Quinn says, I thought H2O was better than Halloween 4. I disagree, Tommy, but I can certainly see why you might think that, or why people think that. And hey, that's to each their own. That's why these franchises are great. These sequels, everyone's got their own opinion on them. And some people like some more than others. But as far as Halloween 4, I just think Halloween 4, for a couple reasons, is better than H2O. Both masks suck, but I think H4 is worse, actually. But it just feels like the Halloween season. I mean, shit, the opening credits alone are better than anything, in my opinion, in H2O. But I can certainly see how you feel that way. So certainly not knocking your opinion or anything like that. Let's see. Popeye 129 says, I hate the Rob Zombie films. I do as well. I haven't seen them as much. I basically have watched the Rob Zombie films a couple of times, and that's enough for me. I'm just not a fan of Rob Zombie's movies. When you start watching the remake of Halloween in 2007, within the first, is it 45 seconds or something like that? They got a stepdad say he's going to skull fuck his stepdaughter. Jesus Christ. I mean, come on. When you have the original Halloween that's just so nuanced and built on, less is more and things like that. And then this is just right in your face. I'm just not a fan of it. So I agree with you there. I know people that actually do love the Rob Zombie films because they just grew up on them. So it's the nostalgia factor sometimes. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Lost my... All right, Popeye 129. I think Amy Steele is the best final girl in the Jason series. I would agree with you there. In fact, maybe not. I'll do you one better. I think she may arguably be the best final girl in any of these franchises. And I'm going to be dodging bricks when I say that because everyone loves, Laurie Strode. But I think Ginny from Part 2 of Friday the 13th might be a stronger character than anyone. The one person I would say gives her a run for her money is Nancy Thompson. But if I had to rank the final girls in these three franchises off the top of my head without too much thought, I'd probably go Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2. I'd go Nancy Thompson. And then, I kind of want to say Danielle Harris, but I'll go Laurie Strode. So yeah, I agree with you there. Amy Steele was great in that movie. 1 second here. All right. Tommy Quinn says, what do you think of The Hills Have Eyes 2006? It's in my top 5 horrors of all time. Tommy, I have not seen that remake yet, but I will add it to the list. If you are that adamant that it's in your top 5 horror movies of all time, hey, I kind of want to see what I'm missing here because I haven't seen it. I have seen the original. I can't remember what year that came out. I want to say 79. Maybe it was earlier. I think Craven did Last House on the Left in like 75, 74, and then Hills Have Eyes, I want to say 79, but I could be way off on that. But yeah, I'll definitely have to check out the 2006 version. Captain Brandon Horror Lover says, my top Friday heroines, Alice from the first film, then Ginny from Part 2, and then Trish, the sister from Final Chapter. Yep. It's definitely a solid list. Hard to argue with that. I wasn't a huge fan of Alice, but to be honest, I can't really put my finger on why I'm not a big fan of her. So it could just be that, I like some of the other movies better. As far as Trish from the Final Chapter, yep, Trish is definitely solid. I would probably, if I had to rank my top 3 in the Friday franchise, it'd be Ginny number 1, probably Chris from Part 3 number 2, and then Trish would be from Part 4 number 3. That would probably be on my list, but I'd have to think about that. I feel like I'd have to include Alice in there as well. And Chris, I know there's a lot of people have issues with Chris from part 3. She kind of goes crazy at the end, but she really fought Jason hard. She let's forget about the flashback scene where Jason, for some reason, is wearing the same clothes that he picked up earlier that day. But for some reason, years before Jason attacked, and there's implied rape, I think, of Chris. But anyway, think about what Chris went through in part 3. It started out, the final chase kind of starts out with Rick's body being thrown through the window. She runs up the stairs, throws the books on Jason, then hides in the closet and stabs him in the hand and stabs him in the knee. She kind of falls / jumps out the window. And then she hits Jason with the log. And then, she gets in the van, but the biker gang had, siphoned the gas. So Jason catches up to her, and, she closes his hand on the window. And then she gets to the barn and finally, locks herself in the barn. But Jason comes in, she jumps on him from the rafters, hits him with a shovel, hangs him, and then was it Ali kind of saves her at the end, by getting his arm chopped off. But then, she gives him an axe in the head. So she went through a lot with Jason. That's why it's like my favorite final chase scene, just because it goes from all these different places. And she really gives Jason a run for his money there. So I feel like Chris for me would have to be in my top 3 Friday final girls. So I'd probably have her in there over Alice or Trish. But I'd really have to think about that. I like that. I like where your head's at there. It's a good question. All right, let's see. Captain Brandon Horlover says, I love Rob Zombie's music and films, but they're indeed not for everybody. Yeah, I actually think Rob Zombie is a brilliant filmmaker. I think at some point he may make just a classic horror movie. It's just I wish people would rein in his writing a little bit. They all just seem white trash for me. Granted, I haven't seen 3 from Hell yet. But yeah, I really do think he's a brilliant filmmaker. He knows how to set a shot. He knows how to score a movie. I hope so, because he's a musician. But yeah, it's just his movies aren't for me. So you're right, Brandon. He's got plenty of fans, and they're not for everybody. Oh, excuse me, guys. Oh, Captain Brandon Horlever says, don't forget more of the opening dialogue of Halloween 07. Maybe I'll choke the chicken and, oh, God, purge my snorkel all over those floppy ass tits. Yeah, I forgot about that line. I wonder, oh, God. Yeah, just brutal dialogue. Why put that in there? It just doesn't make sense to me. Aiden Lewis, how you doing? Says, Jason from 2009 versus Michael from 1995. Good question. So you're talking about Derek Mears from the remake versus Michael from Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Good question. I would choose, they're both just brutal in both of these movies. Probably be a good battle. I would choose Jason from 09. Michael, there's some scenes where he's a little bit chunky-ish, I suppose is the nicest way I can put it. But Jason, is an outdoorsman by that. He's basically a badass outdoorsman that knows how to use everything. So I'd choose Jason, but I'd be a good fight. Good question. Let's see what else we got here. 1 second here. Rob Zombie needs a filter. Yes, I 100% agree. John Bruce says Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 probably sank his career. His and Scout Taylor Compton's. Yeah, it definitely didn't do him any favors. It's interesting. He was kind of stuck with the template of the original Halloween when he was doing the remake. And then I remember, and someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I remember he wasn't going to do a sequel. He didn't want to. But then the studio, I think, gave him creative control to do whatever he wanted with Michael Myers and Halloween. So he actually came up. I actually thought him coming up with the hospital dream sequence was a good idea in theory, because at the beginning of H209 I'm talking about, I think it was a good idea because it kind of made you think, okay, we're going to do the same thing just like Halloween 2 1981. It's going to be his version of it. But no, he kind of tricked you, flipped it on its head a little bit. And then the problem is the rest of the movie sucked. Not to mention that dream sequence is like a half hour, 25 minutes or something like that. So that takes up a lot of the time that you would have for the narrative. But yeah, having Michael be a kind of like a wandering nomad hobo without a mask, not his best move. And the less said about the white horse, obviously, the better. Obviously, I think he's just trying to get his wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, in the movie again, even though she died in the first one. But yeah, I agree. Let's see. Jacqueline McEwen says, along with the same lines as your rankings you just did, how would you rank each of the big three reboots against each other? Ooh, I like that question, Jacqueline. Well, that's a good question. I would say in third place would be A Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010. Not a fan of that movie. Not Jackie Earl Haley's fault. I thought his performance was fine. No matter what he did, everyone was just going to say, it's not Robert Englund. I'm not going to like that. I thought he was fine. I thought it was dark. Yeah, but the movie it didn't do it for me. I didn't find any of the characters likable. I just didn't. And it really just kind of killed any momentum the franchise might have had. Obviously, because it's been 10 years and we still haven't gotten another Nightmare. Second place, I'd probably go Rob Zombie's Halloween in 2007. And then the best of the reboots or remakes or whatever you want to call them, I'd say Friday the 13th, 2009. The first 20 minutes of Friday the 13th, 2009 alone probably just make it the best. And as much as I wasn't a huge fan of the rest of the movie, I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was bad by any means. I mean, trust me, it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, I would probably say Friday the 13th, then Halloween, and then A Nightmare on Elm Street. Great question. Let's see. Popeye 129 says Alice's performance seemed forced. Yeah, I can see how you think that. She's a little wooden stock character. I'm trying to think. Other than basically Steve Christie hitting on her, and the final head chop of Mrs. Voorhees, I don't think she did too much memorable things, unless I'm missing something here. I haven't seen the original. Actually, no, I take that back. I watched it the last Friday the 13th in March, which, because of COVID and all this shit, seems like a couple of years ago, but it was actually just a couple months ago. Captain Brandon Horror Lover. I mean, I love Halloween 2009, but I admit he had to shoehorn his hot wife in there. Yes. Yeah, I actually know a lot of people that love. And as much as I am not a fan of it, Brandon, I can see why people like it, because it was different. And what they did with Laurie's character, although I personally don't like what they did, just because I'm more of a classic franchise guy in nature, I certainly respect what he did. And it's certainly realistic, I think, that a person, after going through a traumatic experience like she did, was it a year before? In that timeline, whatever it is, whatever traumatic experience she went through in the Halloween reboot in 2007, it's certainly realistic that she could kind of lose her goddamn mind. So I thought it was a ballsy move, that's for sure. I would have done something different, but I certainly understand why there is a lot of fans of it. Let's see what else we got. John Bruce, how you doing, John? How you doing, John? Says, Linda was my favorite Halloween girl. What Rob Zombie did to her character was absolutely unforgivable. Yep, I wasn't a big fan of her arc in that movie either. And yeah, I did love Linda in the original Halloween 2. Totally loved her. But yeah, so I agree with you there, John. Josh Niebuhr says Mental House Part 5. What the fuck? Scary. Yeah, I assume you're talking about the kind of, it's not an insane asylum, but the mental health facility in Friday the 13th Part 5. Yeah, it was a interesting way to go with that movie. I didn't hate it. It just, the Tommy in that movie, obviously he went through traumatic things and he was fucked up in the head. He just wasn't very likable. And I think it's just magnified by the fact that Tom Matthews in part 6 was so damn fun that when you look at part 5, it's like, how is this the same character? So certainly not the actor's fault, certainly not the director's fault or anything like that. But yeah, I didn't mind the mental house, as you call it, in part 5. Let's see, Popeye 129. Nick, what are your thoughts, Nick, on a digital Loomis in Halloween Kills? Well, I'd prefer not to have a digital Loomis if the rumors are true, and Loomis is going to be in the flashback. I would prefer them not to do a digital version of him. I think they could get away with just kind of showing him whatever the flashback is. I think they could get away with just showing him like on a side shot, show a trench coat, and maybe his gun that is out of bullets, and have him, maybe ranting and raving, or anything like that. I don't know if I guess I'd have to see how it looks. It's a good question. I know what's his face and was it Rogue One? Was it Rogue One? Peter Cushing's character in Rogue One. It looked okay. Same with Princess Leia. It looked okay. I just don't know how it would look making kind of a digital Donald Pleasance / Dr. Loomis. So I'd have to see it. From what I understand, and I could be way off on this, but from what I understand, the technology for doing that is pretty expensive. And what we know about Blumhouse is, they make, I don't want to say cheap horror movies, but they make affordable horror movies. So the question is, let's say they have to shell out a shit ton of money for 5-second shot on digital Dr. Loomis. Well, then what else are they cutting out of the budget? What are they cutting out of the budget on other scenes and stuff like that? Are they going to cut out some type of explosion at the hospital and things like that? So that'd be my biggest concern on that. But I'm open to seeing it. Maybe it'll look good. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. If there's one thing I'm going to be paranoid, it's going to be a portrayal of Donald Pleasance. He's my favorite character in any of these. He's my favorite character in horror. Dr. Loomis is my favorite character in horror. So I'm going to hold them to a higher standard. Do not fuck up Loomis. I am telling you right now, Blumhouse, if you fuck up Loomis, I am done with you. So yeah, I just love Dr. Loomis. So I'm just scared of what a digital version of him could look like, and if it'll take me out of the movie and things like that. Let's see what else we got here. You guys got some great questions. Keep them coming. I'm loving it. Chris C. 18. How you doing, Chris? Says, how do you think Michael escaped the fire? Good question. If it was up to me, and I've said this before, I would not want to know. I don't want to know. I think it'd be cool if, the movie starts and within, 20 minutes or something, all of a sudden Laurie and them find out that Michael has escaped and they're like, what the hell? How did that happen? I just think it'd be scarier that way. But the realist in me says that they're going to show it, and I've accepted that. That's fine with me because I think it's going to be a cool scene. The house is going to be on fire. Fire is going to be everywhere. And for the scene that we've seen is Michael's holding, I think it's called a halogen bar or something, which people have said is what firefighters use. So obviously I think Michael's going to kill some firefighters in a burning down house, which, like I said, could be a pretty awesome scene. So I'm definitely open to seeing it. I've accepted it. So I think a firefighter will come in and, say, hey, maybe we got one down here, or a firefighter will come in and they go down to the basement and they're trying to put it out, and Michael shows up from behind and starts killing them. So it could be a cool scene. So yeah, good question. Let's see here. Let's see what we got here. John Bruce says, Linda in the original was such a fun-loving character. In the remake, she was just such a bitch. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, she was. She wasn't as likable in the remake, in my opinion, as she was in the original. In the original, any issues with Linda could be, she, at some points, in my opinion, could be a little bit annoying with the totally, but she was definitely not unlikable. Um, she between her and Annie, she may have actually been nicer to Laurie in that movie than Annie was. Annie was kind of, ripping on Laurie a little bit and giving her a hard time. So Linda might actually been a better friend to Laurie, but she was definitely likable in that original. I'll give you that. Tommy Quinn, hey Tommy, says, do you think Laurie will die in Halloween Kills? No, I don't. I do not think that Blumhouse has the balls to do that. I wish they would kill her. I think that would raise the stakes, and just kind of pass the torch. Have her sacrifice herself to save Allison. But no, I don't think they'll kill her because Jamie Lee Curtis. Whatever you think of Laurie Strode character, Jamie Lee Curtis brings some credibility to this franchise that the other two franchises might not have. And she can bring in, although she's not, the biggest A-list actor in the world. She can bring in the casual fans. People that aren't watching, a channel like this, or aren't talking about, or aren't waiting for the Halloween Kills trailer. When they see the trailer soon, hopefully, they might see Laurie Strode or Jamie Lee Curtis. Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is in there again. Let's go see that. And the same thing with Halloween Kills. So I don't think it makes financial sense for Blumhouse to kill her this movie. Even though it's something that I would personally like, it just doesn't make much sense to me. All right, Captain Brandon Horlever. For me, the only character kind of ruined in the Rob Zombie films was Dr. Loomis being a total LA Hollywood sellout in Halloween 2. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that storyline for Dr. Loomis. Like I said, I like that Zombie in Halloween 2 kind of took it to a different level, with Laurie's arc and, things like that. But I wasn't a big fan of what he did with Loomis. He tried to kind of redeem himself at the end. And Brandon carries on and says, he's a money and fame grubbing prick in that one. I agree. It almost seemed like something to do just for the sake of change. I'm not saying it's not how someone would act. We need people to root for in these movies. And Dr. Loomis, he's a character that you can't do that to. I wasn't a big fan of that either, Brandon. So you make a very good point there. Let's see. Josh Niebuhr says, on an island alone, but I love to ship to Manhattan. So he's talking about Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason takes a boat ride to Manhattan. I know people that like it too. For me, there's a few issues with it. Besides, let's take away the fact that false advertising, that everything except for 20 minutes of the film takes place on a boat. And even in those 20 minutes, everything was filmed in alleys that were actually filmed in Vancouver, except for the Times Square scene and, maybe the subway scene or something like that. But take all that shit away. Some of the things I didn't like about Part 8, Jason's look. At first I thought it was creepy, but the more I watched it, he's wet all the time. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. Let's pretend that we can suspend our disbelief and forget that somehow Crystal Lake is now connected to a river that connects to New York City somehow, or the ocean. What are we supposed to believe there? Is it a Great Lake maybe? Who knows? But we'll take that away. It just wasn't a very entertaining movie for me. Final Girl, Rennie, I think her name was. She was all right. She was okay. It kind of continued the tradition. Did you guys notice that from Part 6 on, there's always instead of just having a final girl, there was always a final guy and a girl. So in Part 6, you had Megan and Tommy. Part 7, you had Tina and I can't remember his name. I know the actor's name for some odd reason. Nick Savage. No, not Nick Savage. That's someone else. But anyway, so you had Tina and random guy in the jean coat, I believe, and then jean coat might have been part 8 as well. But anyway, so you had Part 8, you had the girl, Rennie and Scott, I believe his name was. Jason Goes to Hell. You had 2 people surviving. It kind of just kept that tradition after that. It's kind of interesting the way they did that. But as far as Friday 8 goes, yeah, I just wasn't very entertained by it. Very much so. John Bruce says Jason Takes Manhattan was my first horror movie in the theater. So, John, do you like the movie then? I'm just curious if there's nostalgia attached to that, because I know I have a lot of movies that, like I said, I know are not very good, but just the nostalgia factor just makes me think it's better than it is, and I'll just always love it. So yeah. Let's see. Tommy Quinn says, where would you rank the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Good question, Tommy. I would probably, if I'm ranking the 4 originals here, I would probably go from best to worst. I would probably go Halloween, obviously. Then I'd go Nightmare on Elm Street. Then I'd probably go Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Friday the 13th. Yeah, I'd probably have it in the number 3 spot ahead of the original Friday the 13th. It was shocking back in the time. I actually remember I had to be about 10 years old. I remember going to my friend's house. We rented it from Blockbuster in the middle of the day. I remember going to his house. His mom was at work. And I remember watching that movie, and we were terrified, and I found out years later that there really wasn't any blood in that movie. And I was shocked just because you hear the sounds, you see the girl put on the hook. It was shocking. But yeah, so I don't think it's better than the original Halloween, obviously. And I don't think it's better than the original Nightmare on Elm Street. But I'd probably say it's maybe not better than the original Friday the 13th. But if I was ranking them on where I think that they'd fall, I'd probably have it in the 3rd spot. Let's see here. Brian Swanson says, I'm interested in seeing how Tommy and Lindsay find out about what happened to Lori and how Nurse Marion coming into play. Yeah, I agree, Brian. It will be interesting. Judging by the few snapshots we had, you have Tommy outside, with a shaved head and a baseball bat. So it seems like they're going to kind of at some point, they're going to find out what happened to Lori somehow. Like you said, it'll be interesting to see how, and then try to dole out some vigilante justice, or try to be finding Michael. Maybe it'll be similar to the the original part 2, where the whole police force is kind of looking for him in backyards and stuff like that. Popeye 129 says the new 4K Jaws is amazing quality, Nick. Check it out. I will. I do have to check that out. Jaws is interesting. I think Jaws would probably give the original Halloween, for me, a run for its money on a movie I've seen the most times. And just because it's always on TV, and it's a movie that I can't stop watching even when it's on TV. I'll stay up late. If God help me, if it's 10 p.m. and I'm flipping through channels for some reason and I need to get up early the next day and Jaws is on, I'm screwed. I just won't turn it off. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, but yeah, I definitely need to check out the 4K version. It'll be interesting to see. John Bruce says, I do still have a soft spot for part 8. Part 7 would have been my first, but the theater employees were Nazis and wouldn't let me in. Why wouldn't they let you in, John? Too young? That was kind of the time when, when, like I said, the MPAA really butchered that movie. But that's when, these slasher movies developed reputations. They were saying they're bad for people, bad for kids to watch this shit, and bad for people to be fans of this shit. So I wonder if that's why, they started cracking down on who's let in the theater. ATGNAT podcast. Hey guys, says Jaws is almost a perfect movie. I could not agree more. And then they add that it's timeless. So yeah, I agree that Jaws is almost perfect. And it's definitely timeless. I mean, look at it. It came out in 1975. Think about all the shark movies that have come out since then. My favorite shark movie besides Jaws that have come out since would probably be, Deep Blue Sea, actually. But it doesn't compare to Jaws. It's just crazy. You're right. It's 100% timeless. If you added, cell phones into Jaws, you could tell me it was filmed, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I agree. Jaws is absolutely wonderful. We're going to go for about 15 more minutes, guys. Popeye 129. Nick, what are your thoughts on the Ghost of Mars? I love Escape from New York. Well, I'll talk about the second one first. Escape from New York. Yes, love that movie. Obviously, who doesn't love Snake Plissken? And obviously, it's a John Carpenter movie, so awesome. Ghosts of Mars. All right, here is my thought on Ghosts of Mars. I saw Ghost of Mars when I think I was like 18 years old. And I am embarrassed to say I fell asleep in the theater and I've never went back to it. And I don't know. I was a kid. Like I said, I was 18. I remember we smoked a bunch of weed before watching that movie. And I don't know if I fell asleep because the movie was boring or I was high out of my goddamn mind. But so I really should probably revisit that. I never have. So yeah, good. I'm glad you brought that up because I need to revisit that. And sorry for bringing up my childish shenanigans when I was a child there, but it's the God's honest truth. All right, let's see. John Bruce says, "Yeah, I was only 13 when 7 came out." Yeah, I don't blame you then for trying to sneak in there. It's a perfect age to go see some of these movies. I mean, back in the late 80s, you're 13. These Friday the 13th, Jason's hacking people. You got boobs, you got it all. So yeah, I don't blame you for trying to get into there. Let's see here. Tommy Quinn, The Reef is my favorite shark movie after Jaws. That is on my list to see. I have not seen that yet. I've had a couple people tell me that. So yeah, I definitely need to check that out. Thank you, Tommy. Brian Swanson says, we need a cameo in H Kills of Barry Sims and ask Karen if she wears crotchless panties and barks like a dog. Yes, I'm down for that. If anyone doesn't know, Barry Swims is kind of the shock rock, whatever you call it, DJ in Part 6. That they were originally offered to Howard Stern, I believe, or if they didn't offer it to him, they wrote him to kind of be like Howard Stern. So yeah. Captain Brandon Horror Lover says, even weed didn't help the shittiness of 2001's Ghost from Mars. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe it wasn't just the weed for me there. Maybe it's just a bad movie. But I'm gonna have to check that out because I've had a couple of people tell me to check it out, and I've read about it. But I just fell asleep in the theater. What can I say? All right, I love Carpenter, but it's easily one of the shittiest films. I got it on Blu-ray though. Yeah, I got a lot of movies that are shitty on Blu-ray too, Brandon. All right, KJLADFS. Any thoughts on the Scream series and upcoming film? I like the Scream series. I'm a fan. I'm not a huge fan of Part 3, like most people. The original, I love. Second one, pretty good. Third one, garbage. And the fourth one I thought was a nice return to the series. I thought it was well done. Here are my issues with the Scream franchise. They have never killed off, except for Part 2, when they killed Randy, but they have never killed off a main character. Gale needs to die. Dewey has 9 lives. He was killed in Part 2, and then he's killed in Part 1, right? He's stabbed in the back in Part 1. He's fine then at the end. Stabbed in the back again in Part 2. He's fine again. It's like, come on. And I think if I'm not mistaken, they kind of made jokes to that in the third one, maybe the fourth one. But you need to raise the stakes a little bit. The fourth one, like I said, I thought it was a nice return. As far as the upcoming fifth one goes, sounds like the gang is back together, which is good. But the question is, what do you do? So think about the first one was about slasher movies or horror movies. Second one was about sequels, right? Kind of tackling the tropes of sequels. Third one, trilogies, naturally. And then in 2011, Part 4, they tackled remakes and reboots, and they did a good job with it. It was pretty clever. But what now? So what is the trend in horror now that Scream could do? There's a lot of like paranormal stuff and things like that, but that doesn't really translate to Scream. So how are they going to be clever enough to have it still be a Scream series, yet come up with what the new trend is? I don't see how they would do that. That being said, of course I'm going to see it, but I hope they have the balls to kill someone off. If I'm Nev Campbell, I wouldn't have come back. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool that the gang's back together. Please kill off Dewey. Please, kill off Gale. Just do that, and I'll be happy, because at least you have the balls to do that. And then what? We're gonna have another part. We're gonna have another one 20 some odd years later. But yeah, I'll definitely watch it, and maybe I'll get excited when I see a trailer or something like that. But I'm kind of it's okay. Let's see here. Oh, sorry guys, lost my place. All right, here we go. Norbit Rice, how you doing, Norbit? Says scariest theater experience. Mine was War of the Worlds in 2005 when I was 9 years old. Ooh, that is a good one. For me, my scariest theater experience, huh? Ooh, that is tough. So the first Halloween movie I saw in the theaters was Part 6 when I was 12 years old. I wouldn't say that was my scariest experience. I'll have to think about that. I'll have to get back to you. Maybe I'll do a video on that, because I really want to think about that. I want to kind of go through my memories and see. But yeah, War of the Worlds, I could see as 9 years old kind of being a little bit frightening. Let's see. Chris C. 18. Do you have any ideas about how the Strodes will beat Michael and H Kills that would top Halloween 2018? Well, I think what'll top Halloween 2018 will be one of the Strodes dying. Most likely, Karen is the most likely choice. Karen sacrificing herself to maybe not defeat Michael, but slow him down enough where Allison can escape. So I think that alone would top 2018. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending of 2018, but from what I heard about the alternate ending where Michael just kind of goes and sits on a log for some reason, I like what they ended up going with better, but I wasn't a huge fan of the ending. So in order to top it, it's not going to take much to top it. And as far as the Strodes beating Michael, I'm not sure that they will beat Michael, but I would like to see Karen sacrifice herself, or if not sacrifice herself, I'd like to see Karen die. Just because we need like I said, we need the stakes raised. Tommy Quinn says, what do you think of The Strangers? Very good slasher. Yes, I love The Strangers. I thought that was a very creative movie. I love when, the famous line, why us, or why me, or whatever she says, because you were home. Great line. And actually, if you guys haven't seen The Strangers Pray at Night, is actually damn solid. That was actually my most I'm trying to think how to say this. It was probably the biggest positive surprise I've had in the theater in a long time. I saw it when there was really nothing that I wanted to see in the theater, but I wanted to see a movie. And I went, I was like, check it out. And I had a damn good time watching The Strangers Pray at Night. Very good sequel, in my opinion. They're in a little bit of a trailer park, and they got some good montages of 80s music. It was just fun. It was just a fun movie. And it still was very, low stakes, low key, with just one family. But I thought it was very, very well done. Smart Reaper, how you doing? Says, what do you think of the H5 mask? Not a fan. It's, in my opinion, it's not the worst in the series. The worst for me is Halloween 4. But H5 is probably the next worst in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the neck, long neck Myers, they call him. And, he's got the, I'm not a fan of the hair. 1989, it was like, rocker time. I just wasn't a fan of the look of the mask. I thought they could have done a better job. Yep, I still like it better than Halloween 4. Popeye 129 says, one thing I feel the later Halloween series is missing is a good stalking scene. I 100% agree. That was my biggest gripe of Halloween 2018 was, and you guys have heard me say this before, was we started out to have, Allison. Well, I'm talking about a chase scene actually right now, but we'll get to stalking in a second. But we started out with Allison with the great John Carpenter music, and then boom, the scene is over before it even begins. But as far as stalking, yeah, we definitely need a new great stalking scene. As a kid, nothing creeped me out more than Michael being in the background when Annie's talking on the phone. He's there and he's gone. She just moved a second. How do you go away? He's just slowly stalking her, looking through the window. He basically stalked Lori all goddamn day in the daylight, and it was creepy as hell. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. The stalking scenes bring suspense, which is what is missing from most modern day horror films, because everyone wants kills. And I fucking get it, man. I totally get it. But can we have a little bit of suspense? Maybe the one point of suspense we might have had in 2018 was ruined by the goddamn marketing I'm talking about the closet scene with Vicky, which isn't the movie's fault. But still, you got to have stalking scenes. That's Michael's MO from the first movie. And remember, this is supposed to be a sequel to that original movie. This is the same Michael. So why is he not stalking? I agree with you. It's bothersome to me. All right, we're going to go about 4 or 5 more minutes, guys. Let's see here. Popeye 129 says Dewey is made of iron. Yes, Dewey from Scream, he is definitely made of iron. I 100% agree with you. Tommy Quinn, what would be your favorite horror score? Halloween, 1978. But I'm going to give you a different answer. Just because I think I'm always saying Halloween 1978. But if you include that, don't include that, I actually am a big fan of the score of The Fog. Of course, another Carpenter movie. But I just really, really like The Fog. The score to The Fog. I just thought it just created a lot of tension, and it was perfect for that movie. So that'd be off the top of my head, that'd be one of my favorite scores. Captain Brandon Horror Lover, I think everyone filmmaker now wants kills because the MPA won't really censor them nowadays. Yep, that's true. They can kind of get away with way more than they used to because it's been proven. Well, maybe not proven, but it's not as worrisome to the general public. Obviously, there's more important shit going on, especially right now. But yeah, there's better technology. How it's used is open for debate. But yeah, the MPAA they know that they can film this kill, and the MPAA ain't gonna make them not have it in the movie. I mean, so it's not just a waste of their time. Yeah, so I agree with you. They can, like you said, yep. Now you just said, so they can find it cut loose kills wise. Yep, I agree. And I think a lot of times, it may create something where some of the special effects people kind of want to show what they can do. And kills get everyone talking. What do you see when you go on YouTube or you go online? Best kills of this franchise, best kills of this horror movie. I don't know when it started, but just extravagant kills are a big thing now. Maybe it was Final Destination or Saw in that kind of era in the late 2000s. No, it'd be early 2000s, early 2000s. Might have been kind of when it started, and everyone wants to one up each other. But yeah, they, like you said, they can cut loose. Good point, Brandon. All right, guys, I am gonna be done for today. I really appreciate everyone coming. Great conversations. Thank you guys so much. You guys are fantastic. If you want me to do more live streams and you have any topics, feel free to let me know in the comment section once this is posted. And yeah, we can do some fun topics coming up. There's a lot going on. Hopefully we get some Halloween kills news soon. And thanks, guys. I will see you next week.